So I stumbled on this page here. It was on my Facebook news feed the other day, and I thought it was pretty interesting. It was a suggested page offered for me to like, Voyagers Wolf Project, which is a collaboration between the University of Minnesota and Voyagers National Park up in northern Minnesota. So this is let's go on this for a second here. This pretty little diagram here shows 68,000 GPS locations from 7 wolves in different packs from this past summer. Each wolf's collar took locations every 20 minutes, with the exception of the northernmost pack, which was in between Kabetogama and Namakan and Rainy Lake, north of that. That one took locations every 4 hours starting in October. All these other ones here were all summer long. Doesn't say when it started. Just says all summer long, I believe. Okay, so get into here. And the thing I found peculiar, I'm going to get to the point right away, is this area here and this area here. Now there's other spots here where the wolves did not go. And there's a little area right there. And this magenta wolf avoided these avoidance zones for whatever reason. And somebody even over here said, I'm wondering what is in the middle of the white tracker for them to stay clear. And then the Voyagers, somebody from the Voyagers project got back to them. Here, let me expand this. That's a great question, she says, or he says. It is hard to say why some wolves go where they go and why they don't go other places. There is no lake in those empty spaces, but in the big empty space is the beginning of one fork of the Rat Root River. That area is very swampy, boggy, and probably not a very easy place to move around in. So it's possible a wolf just avoided it because it's not easy to travel through. Or it's because there are not any prey in that area, so it does not spend any time there. But ultimately, those are just guesses, which is fine. It's fine that they don't know. They're just posting the raw data. They don't have to have answers for everything. So we're just going to focus on this pack right here in the white, because it's got the most two well-defined avoidance areas there. And we're going to look in there and see if these indeed are really boggy spots in there. And we're also going to look to see if these aren't boggy spots that would impede the wolves from traveling. Is there any difference between the vegetation in here, or the landscape, and these heavily traveled areas, places where they do not have a problem going in and around these avoidance zones? We're gonna check and compare the vegetation in there. We're gonna take a sample of maybe 1, 2, 3 little control locations and put waypoints down on Google Earth to investigate, and then compare these spots to the experimental spots, or 2 experimental groups here. This avoidance zone, and then this one a little bit further to the east. And the name, I forget the name of the pack. They have actually named these packs. So yeah, Moonshadow. This is called the Moonshadow pack we are going to be looking into today. Okay, so this program's not letting me toggle back and forth between Google Earth here and map on with the pack. So if you want to do this at home, get Google Earth and look down here where it says eye altitude. Go to 39, right around 39 miles eye altitude. And what I did was I lined up this little spot right here perfectly. And I toggled back and forth by hitting my Google Earth Pro button. And this right here this little isthmus right there. And at 39 miles, it works pretty good. Get them lined up. And that's how I got to, and then I put down a waypoint on the right vacant area in Moonshadow 2, I call it. And the left westernmost one is called Moonshadow 1. And then I went ahead and I put down 3, and I lined these up pretty good too. This is these are control areas where the wolves do spend a lot of time. These red ones right here. So we're going to look in these 3 areas. We're going to look in the 2 experimental areas too. And then we're going to compare what's in the experimental areas, what kind of trees are in there. We're going to look to see how that looks from Google Earth, and then we're going to compare that to a photograph alongside the road of the same type of vegetation to find out what kind of trees we're actually looking at. Okay, so let's go into Moonshadow 1 now. Now I would say that the eye was like this big maybe, and this eye was about this big. So about this much area here is where wolves did not go. I'm approximating now. So this appears to be right smack dab in the center. Alright. Already we're seeing some tops of what I believe to be poplar trees. I know this by experience. But you also got to look down here. See this? Imagery date. That's the date this satellite photo was taken. That's May 4th, 2015. Isn't that Star Wars Day? May the 4th be with you. 2015. May, so there's probably still a little snow still on the ground up there in northern Minnesota. No leaves on the trees, so keep that in mind. And just in case you're on the fence about whether or not these trees here are dried out, dead swamp stands, I've found the boundary. I got it marked back here a little bit to the west. This is what I call, from Google Earth's perspective, the July-May boundary. This image over here was taken in July. This area over in here was taken in May, and they were stitched together perfectly. You can see how the river lines up here, and watch down here on in this area, imagery date, 5/4/2015 in this area. Go to the left into the green area over here, and look at how it says July 18th, 2016, May 4th over here, and July. Let's take a look, get in a little closer, and see that these are roughly the same. These are poplar trees here. Same kind of trees as we're seeing in our 2 experimental zones, Moonshadow 1 and 2. In May, without leaves, and in July over here, with leaves. So these are, just in case you're on the fence as to whether or not these were dead swamp trees, as you do often see in swamps up in northern Wisconsin. And you can see this green line here goes north and south for quite a ways, so that's not just a small anomaly. It's down here too. See May over here, July over here, May, July. Then let's go over to Moonshadow 2. Looks like we got a little of the same thing here. These green spots here are conifer trees. They keep their needles year round. But these again look to be like mostly poplar trees. I don't know if they're old growth or not. Oops, getting a little too far in there. Now here we got some swampland over here, but it's very small. This is kind of a swampy area here that Voyagers Wolf Project representative was talking about. But this seemed to be the epicenter right here of the avoidance area. And judging by let's find the other one. Judging by the distance between the two, I'm guessing this avoidance area was probably like this. So up in here, let's take a little, okay, let's take a little tour of this. There's the highway I was talking about. You can even see these linear black lines going this way, going from southeast to northwest. Photograph must have been taken about 10 o'clock in the morning. Those are just shadows from the trees. So I'm going to get in here. Let's get in here and take a good look at this. Okay. Now we don't have photographs of this here to tell you what kind of trees those are. But let's compare, keep that fresh in your mind. Let's go over here to this road. Let's find something alongside the road that looks just like that. How is this in here? This kind of stuff right in here. These trees here. Same sort of stuff, huh? Alright. Over here too. Over here too. Let's get a little bit closer. Yeah. This looks like a little younger growth over here. You don't see those big, sprawling, snowflake-looking tops like you do in the experimental areas. We got a few over here though, like right in here. This is more indicative, like in here, of what we're seeing in the experimental zones. So I'm going to double click on the road here. That doesn't do it. I'm going to do it one more time. And boom, we got street view. Alright. Yeah, there's a little bit bigger. These are mostly poplar trees here. These, for those of you who aren't familiar with these birch, they almost look like birch trees from a distance, but they're not. These are poplar trees. Most of them are. There might be a few birch in there. See a couple little tree breaks in there. It's looking southbound on the road. Yeah, where's the sun at? Yeah, sun's up in here. Little jet up there. So if that's south, that's probably right around 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. And May 4th, may the 4th be with you. So yeah, that's the kind of vegetation. That's a little bit thinner. You see the difference in the size of the trees between these ones here? And it seems to be chopped down here. These ones here were probably forested, logged off. This area was probably logged off before this area. This has had a little bit more time to grow. You can see the size difference in the trees too. And this is why I chose this side of the road, this part of the road. And over here, I see there are a bunch of small, younger growth too. Now let's get out of this view and see what I'm talking about here. I gotta double click on the end to get back to north again. So yeah, this area right in here, a little bit older growth. Now we gotta get straight up and down here. Okay, let's back out. Alright, we're looking straight down now. Good. So this area in here is a little bit older growth. You can see a little bit more well-defined treetops in here that I was pointing out. And you can see the boundary between the older growth in here and this younger stuff here. This might be a little hard to walk around in. And this stuff is younger too. I pointed that out already. Nice well-defined shadows from these larger pine trees. Pretty cool. Okay, now that you have it fresh in your mind, the difference between the younger, like over here, and a little older growth, let's go back one more time to Moonshadow 2. Yeah, this is definitely a little older growth. This is not that what my dad likes to call buggy whip, the stuff that's really just a nightmare to try to walk through. But some of these tops are pretty substantial. Some of these tree tops. There must be a good canopy in there in the summertime. Okay, let's get out of here. Let's go back over to Moonshadow 1 and check out those tree tops. Check out the canopy. Nice beaver dams here. See these little beaver ponds blocking up that creek. Yeah, we got some pretty good tree tops. This is not. These are by no means fresh growth, buggy whip. Kind of hard to walk through stuff. But no swamp, no lakes. I'm not saying what it is. I'm just using the process of elimination to eliminate reasons why they would avoid these areas. Okay, so maybe, okay, one more thing to eliminate. Maybe they just don't like those poplar tree stands. Okay, that's why I put these down here. This area, this was a huge area in here. I would say about this big to where wolves had no problem traversing. Okay, so let's just go check it out in here. Now I see some conifers over here, but next to them, they had no problem going through here. This looks like the same sort of stuff. This looks like poplar trees over here. We had some jack pine over here. I don't know what kind of pine trees these are actually. Yeah, but we got mixed hardwood and softwood. Look at this. These are all older growth poplar trees. You know, no issues there. If anything, this place looks a little bit drier. Not as rich. That's the one that's just to the west of Moonshadow 1. Here's another heavily traveled area in here. This is another control area. Now we got a lot of beaver dams in here. This little creek right here, you can always tell the beaver dam is the well-defined edge right here. And this is where the dam is. So the water's flowing this way from west to east. And so, yeah, here too. Here's a dam. Here's another dam here and here. We got a lot of beavers around here. Now this seemed to be the epicenter of another spot where it's heavily traveled by wolves. And if anything, this area in here is well traveled by wolves. If anything, this looks like it's swampy. If this area, I think May of 2015, it was pretty dry that spring. So once it starts to rain, this would get pretty lush and marshy in here. But according to the summer-long telemetry studies, wolves had no problem moving through these swampy areas in here. This was a heavily traveled area because this is red. Remember, we put that down in the heavily traveled areas. So that was in between the two, right? Yep, that's like the nose of between the two avoidance zones. Third avoidance zone we're going to check out now. So over here in the eastern side of the highway, boy, look at all the beaver dams on this creek, up and down. Heavily traveled area here between two rivers. And somebody was commenting about how maybe they don't like areas in between two rivers. They have no problem crossing rivers or any kind of body of water. They'll swim right across that stuff. But let's go check out the vegetation in here. Right now I'm seeing a lot of poplar trees in here. Lots of them. Little mixed, sporadic pine trees. They got no problem going in and out of here. Right now, I don't see any difference whatsoever in the experimental avoidance zones, and these control areas where they have no problem traversing through. So in summary, I'd like to say that I've found nothing on here to determine any reason why wolves would avoid these two zones here. There's nothing in there to impede them from traveling. Based on my own experience, they have no problem with poplar stands traveling through them. And it's also shown here because of this area. These red ones here are control zones where the wolves did go. They spent all summer going through these areas here numerous times. And the vegetation between there and these two experimental groups, Moonshadow 1 and Moonshadow 2, there's basically no difference between them. I see no reason. And these, I was going to show some data on bear travels, bear movements through the season that some people did, but I thought that's just nonsense because you can look that up on your own. I'm just going to tell you straight now from my lips to your ears. Bears do not stay in areas this small all summer long, like there and there. And if you had to ask, if you had to push me, I would say the same thing about Bigfoot or Sasquatch. I know I've got a YouTube channel that has the word Sasquatch in the title, and that's probably what you're thinking, that I'm trying to steer you into thinking. But if push comes to shove, I'm going to say I doubt that too. I could be wrong though. But regardless, whether I think I'm wrong on it or not, I just want to point out that there's no reason. This is not swamp. This is not hard for wolves to get through. It's not lakes. There's no difference between the deer would go into this area here just the same as they go through here. I mean, the same vegetation goes through there and everything. Mixed hardwood and softwood, and mostly poplar and mixed hardwoods adjacent to some conifers. It's actually a pretty good time of the year for this satellite picture to be taken, May the 4th, because you can see more clearly the pine trees, conifers, and as in stark contrast to the hardwoods, because the hardwoods do not have leaves on them yet. Yeah, I see no. Let's back out now. All the yellow ones that I put on here, you've noticed that I've got other. I'll back out here a little bit more. I've got other yellow marks on here. These are from the other packs. Do have smaller vacant areas in them. None as big as Moonshadow 1 and Moonshadow 2. Those are the two biggest vacant areas. But there were some others in here. So let's go check these out before I let you go. Yeah, it looks like poplar to me. Sounds like a broken record. Really closely, look at these beaver dams in here. Man, there's a lot of beaver activity up there. Wild country, though. Real wild. I go on a fishing trip up here on average once every 5 years. On average. Look at this. This is a mixed hardwood, softwood, poplar trees. There's a big top there, a big top. Bigger, older growth trees there. Another avoidance area. No reason for them to avoid that area. From Google Earth anyhow. Especially since over here, this is heavily. This one is heavily traveled. This place here. This area in here. Well, Looks pretty much the same to me. Let's try a couple more. This is avoidant. So you know, this is a swamp here. This one is swampy. I hate to see this in July. The little island of conifer trees here in the middle of the swamp. This time of year it's very brown. You can actually see some game trails. See this here? That's a game trail. There's a bunch of game trails cutting through there. Bunch of them. So they get through there. Just go over the same spot every time. But they avoided that little area. That is kind of strange because I think if I remember this one right, this is a really small avoidance area. And I bet you it's the size of this little island right here. Oh, I see tracks going in it. See all these game trails? This is actually a 2-track here. It looks like vehicle tracks there. Yeah, it does. Huh. Yeah, some of these game trails are going right into this conifer island. But it does look like this main trail here skirts it. And maybe goes around it, and here's another one over here. Maybe it's just a way of getting around to and fro, and they have no reason to go into here. I don't know. Who knows? If they're going to study on why wolves go places, that's one thing, but trying to figure out why they don't go in other areas, that's a tougher thing altogether. So there you have it. That's about all I'm going to show you. That's about all I got time for. If you live up in this area, and if you're not trespassing, if you find these spots, please don't trespass. Feel free to let me know if you go into these spots and see if you can find anything noteworthy in there. Let me know. Thanks for watching. If you like my videos, please consider subscribing. Click on the bell to get notifications when I post a new video.